Semantics.
Tomato, tomato.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much. It's kind of one and the same, yeah, it is. But, you know, going back to caught between what we did last month. Just to let you guys know, I don't know if I told you then, and I probably didn't tell you because I didn't find out until recently. One of our other clients, they were working up north, and when I say up north, I'm talking about like the Fort Pierce area, maybe even a little bit further north than that. Anyways, OSHA paid them a visit. They're in underground, just like you guys. And compliance officer comes onto the site. And he takes a look at the ditch, and he looks at it. And, you know, it's probably sloped close to maybe 1 to 1. It's 45 degrees. All right. And it's probably not probably, but just taking a look at the slope, and the compliance officer knowing soil mechanics and what it's supposed to be. And he knows pretty much everything in South Florida is supposed to be type C soil. Gets out his tape measure and he measures this thing. And it's 5 feet, 1.1 inches deep. And they didn't have it sloped 1.5 to 1. They didn't have a shield in it. They didn't have a trench box. They didn't have shoring. And they gigged them for it. $22,000 for a 5-foot, 1.1 inch deep ditch that didn't have proper sloping and didn't have, you know, either that or it didn't have a shield or a trench box. I just thought that was just crazy. And you know what? They ended up meeting with the compliance officer. I'm sorry, not the compliance officer, but with the assistant area director. And he said, nope, sorry, you're SOL. Because there's a difference between being dangerous and not meeting the standard. See, a situation like that, you're not meeting the standard. Doesn't mean it's, you know, particularly dangerous, but you're not meeting the standard, which means you're not meeting the letter of the law. And the letter of the law says that you will provide proper sloping or a trench box at 5 feet deep or greater. 5 feet, 1.1 inches. Nope, sorry. That'll be $11,000 because it was reduced because they went through their expedited system. But, you know, it's just something I wanted to share with you guys because there's people out there that are compliance officers. They're like, oh, you know, okay, whatever. You know what? Fix it. Not a big deal. And there's others that just want to get you for everything and anything they possibly can. So not only for yourselves do you need to stay vigilant, but also you don't want to put yourself in a situation like that where, you know, if there's any guesswork involved. You want to know that this hole is compliant. You want to know that you got a ladder in at 4 feet. You want to know exactly how deep it is. I know that it sounds like a lot to deal with, but at the same time, that's something that you can face while you're out in the field. Before you know it, you got a guy come walking up, shows you the badge, and says, hey, I'm so-and-so, Occupational Safety and Health Administration. I noticed that your hole looks kind of deep here, and your spoil pile looks like it's about, yeah, it's closer than 2 feet. Now, whether you get off with a warning or something like that, who knows? Really, it's just a matter of rolling the dice. You never know. So that's why it's important, besides looking after yourselves, to do it right. Anyways, I'll go ahead and start this. Yes.
Just a typical job site on a typical workday. Heavy equipment is operating, hand and power tools are in use, work is being performed at elevation, materials are being hoisted, lowered, and stacked, and vehicles are moving in and around the site. Plenty of hazards and plenty of ways to get hurt, even killed. 1 out of every 5 workplace fatalities in the U.S. involves a construction worker. But a significant number of worksite deaths result from just one type of incident. OSHA calls them struck-by accidents, and they can be prevented. In this program, we'll discuss what struck-by accidents are, how to recognize the potential for them ahead of time, and what you can do to avoid them. Struck-by hazards are one of the 4 leading causes of fatalities in construction work. These fatal 4 hazards also include falls, electrocution, and caught in or between hazards. Struck-by injuries are caused by the impact you receive when something hits you. This is what makes them different from caught in or between injuries, which are caused by being squeezed, pinched, or compressed by something. OSHA recognizes 4 types of struck-by accidents that are based on how the striking object moves: flying, falling, swinging, or rolling. Flying objects are thrown or propelled through the air, causing an injury or fatality when they strike someone. A loose hammerhead that comes off its handle is a flying object. So are metal fragments that may be thrown from the mushroomed head of a chisel when it's struck by a hammer. Fasteners that are shot by a nail gun can be flying objects too. Falling objects drop from a higher level to hit someone below. In addition to simply striking a worker, falling objects can also crush and pin the people they hit. Examples include a brick that falls from a scaffold, a jib from a boom crane that falls when a bolt holding it fails, or a length of concrete piping that falls off a truck. Swinging objects swing, twist, or turn to strike someone. This can occur when a worker is standing too close to heavy digging equipment and is struck by the arm. When a load of materials being hoisted by a crane is caught by the wind and slams into one of the crew that is landing it. A raised load that slips from its rigging is also considered to be a swinging object. Windy conditions increase the risk of swinging object accidents occurring. Finally, rolling objects roll, slide, or otherwise move to strike someone who is at the same level. The most common rolling objects on a construction site are vehicles that are in motion, such as traffic passing through or around the job site, cars and trucks operating on the site itself, heavy equipment such as dump trucks, bulldozers, or graders that are on the site. The first step in preventing struck-by accidents is to recognize these hazards on your work site. The next step is following appropriate safe work practices to avoid them. One easy and effective way you can protect yourself from struck-by hazards is to use appropriate personal protective equipment, PPE. PPE is anything you wear as a safeguard against injury. For construction work, PPE can include anything from hearing protection to supplied air respirators. But for protection against struck-by hazards, you should pay close attention to head protection, eye protection, foot protection, and high visibility safety clothing. OSHA requires your employer to provide you with PPE that is appropriate for protecting you while you're doing your job, and maintain that PPE and replace it when it has become worn or damaged. Your employer is also required to train you on how to care for the equipment, keep it clean, and use it properly so that you get its maximum protection. As you might expect, head protection protects your head against impact. You should wear it whenever you might be exposed to flying or falling materials, anywhere you might bump your head against beams, piping, or other low-hanging objects. Always inspect head protection before you put it on. Look for dents, cracks, or other signs of deterioration. If you find problems, take it out of service and get a replacement. The same goes for any head protection that has received a heavy blow. Once it has absorbed a significant impact, it can no longer give you sufficient protection. Never wear any type of damaged PPE. Safety glasses or goggles should be worn anytime your work involves flying objects. This includes welding, cutting, grinding, or nailing. Anything that can generate flying fragments, large chips, or other particles, even high winds that whip up dust on your job site. To safeguard your entire face, you should wear a face shield. But remember, a face shield can't provide complete eye protection by itself, so you should always wear safety glasses or goggles under a shield. Falling and rolling objects can both pose serious hazards to your feet. To prevent injuries, you should wear heavy-duty foot protection. Steel toe boots are the PPE of choice to guard your toes against impact and compression. Some boots have built-in protection for your metatarsals as well. These are the small bones located in the upper part of your foot.
I just want to pause it here real quick. These metatarsal guards also on the same site where the compliance officer was, they tried to gig them for not having metatarsal guards when they were using a TAM, which I think is ridiculous because the TAM doesn't come off the ground.
It was jumping jack, it does.
If it was a jumping jack, absolutely. With a jumping jack, yeah, you need the metatarsal guards, but they tried to get them for not having them with the TAM, which I thought was quite a stretch.
It's similar protection by using toe caps and metatarsal guards, which are separate shields that you can fasten to the outside of your normal work boots. Construction workers account for about 25% of the employees who die from being struck by a vehicle while on the job. So even before ground is broken on a project, your employer will start planning how traffic can move most safely through and around the job site. Safe routes will be marked out by signs, barricades, and warning cones. Sometimes flaggers will be used to control traffic movement as well. You will receive site-specific traffic safety training before you begin work. But to avoid being hit by a vehicle, you should always follow these general guidelines. Stay alert. Be aware of traffic on and around the site. Use caution. Keep your distance. Always look both ways as you walk the site. Never put yourself in a position where you can't escape from the path of a moving vehicle. You are much less likely to be struck when you make it easy for the driver to see you. So wearing high visibility reflective safety clothing is also important. Many of the times construction workers are hit by cars, trucks, or other equipment is when they are moving in reverse. These are called backover accidents and are often the result of the driver having limited visibility. To avoid backovers, never cross the path of any machine that's backing up. While many vehicles are equipped with audible backup alarms to warn pedestrians, you should not depend on these devices. You might not be able to hear the alarm over worksite noise. The alarm might be broken and fail to work, or the vehicle might not have an alarm in the first place. Sometimes when backing up, the driver or equipment operator will have a worker run interference for the vehicle by warning coworkers out of the way. If the operator's rearward vision is obstructed, they may have a spotter help out by guiding them with hand signals. In these situations, pay attention to the workers who are assisting the driver and make sure they know where you are. By the way, spotters and flaggers receive special training in the use of proper signals, so don't try to wing it as an amateur. 75% of the struck by accidents and injuries that occur on construction work sites involve heavy equipment. As with motor vehicle traffic, you can reduce your risk of being hit by heavy equipment by staying alert and maintaining a safe distance. But unlike ordinary motor vehicle traffic, heavy equipment can be hazardous even when it's not going anywhere. Some of this equipment has booms that can swing back and forth while the equipment remains in one place. On certain equipment, the superstructure of the machine may move as well. The area of ground that these parts cover when they move is called the swing radius, and it's a serious struck by danger zone. So you should always be aware of the swing radius of heavy equipment and stay away from it. On many work sites, the swing radius will be cordoned off by barriers that warn you of the danger and prevent you from getting too close, but you shouldn't depend on them to be there. You'll be safer if you make a habit of identifying potential swing hazards yourself and staying out of their danger zones. Stay clear of loads that are being raised as well, and never work under a suspended load. And remember, whether a piece of equipment is operating or not, if you have to approach it, you should always do it with caution. Never come at it from its blind side or linger where the machine operator can't see you. If possible, make eye contact with the operator so you know that they know you're there. The more easily you can be seen, the safer you'll be. So this is another reason to always wear high visibility reflectorized safety clothing on your job site. Hand and power tools are designed to work safely, but when a tool has been damaged or misused, it can create serious flying object hazards. Before you use a hand tool, always inspect it for splintered or cracked handles, parts that could fly off like a loose hammerhead, mushroomed heads on impact tools that could throw fragments, loose or sprung jaws on wrenches that could slip and let the tool go flying. If you find any problems, don't use the tool. Have it repaired or replaced. Do the same with power tools. Inspect each one before you use it to ensure that all the safety guards are in place and working properly. Remember, it's never safe to operate a power tool that you're unfamiliar with. Be sure you're trained on how to use it before you fire it up, and always follow the manufacturer's instructions. Be sure to wear eye protection anytime you use hand or power tools as well. Eye protection is also a good idea when you work with compressed air. Blasts of high-pressure air can cause particles to go flying. You can reduce the risk of this happening by adjusting the equipment's operating pressure to 30 pounds per square inch PSI or lower. But even then, eye protection is a must. Nail guns can use electricity, high-pressure air, or gunpowder to drive fasteners into wood, metal, and concrete. When these tools are misused, they can create lethal flying objects. Do not operate a nail gun unless you have been trained on how to use it, and licensed as well if that's required where you work. And always test any type of nail gun before you use it. Any problems that you discover during their tests or operation should be corrected right away. Do not load powder-actuated tools until immediately before you intend to use them, and never leave them unattended. Some situations on a construction site require special measures to prevent struck-by accidents. These include when concrete and masonry walls are being erected, work is being done overhead, and materials are being stacked and stored. Because of their great weight, the falling, rolling, and swinging objects that are associated with the construction of concrete and masonry walls can be very dangerous. To reduce these hazards, when reinforcing wire mesh is unrolled, it should be controlled or turned over so that it cannot spring back and strike someone. No loads should be placed on a concrete wall until it has been determined that the structure can support the weight. Masonry walls should be shored or braced until permanent supports are in place. You should keep your distance from concrete or masonry walls that are under construction unless you are directly involved in putting them up. When work is being done from a scaffold, on a roof, or any other overhead location, objects that fall from that level can create serious struck-by hazards for people who are working or passing by below. To reduce this risk, elevated walking and working surfaces should be equipped with guardrails, screens, and toe boards to prevent people, tools, and materials from falling off. Debris nets should also be installed below work level to catch any objects that get through these safeguards. When you're performing overhead work, take care to secure all the tools that you use, and keep the work area clear to avoid knocking anything off. Alert people below by posting warning signs. When necessary, use barricades to keep people out of the danger zone. Be sure to wear head protection when you work below overhead jobs yourself. Building materials can present struck-by hazards as well. Wherever you're working, you can help to prevent struck-by accidents by storing and stacking materials safely. Sheetrock, lumber, cinder blocks, bags of cement, and other items should always be stacked solidly to prevent slipping, sliding, rolling, or falling. This can be particularly important if conditions are windy. In unfinished buildings, store materials more than 6 feet from hoistways and floor openings. This will prevent anything from falling to lower levels if traffic knocks them over. We've seen that struck-by hazards can be a serious problem on a construction site. But when you understand the risks and follow safe work practices, you can avoid being hurt. Let's review. Struck-by accidents are one of the 4 leading causes of fatalities on construction sites. They occur when workers are hit by objects that are flying, falling, swinging, or rolling. To avoid struck-by hazards, use caution and keep your distance from vehicular traffic and heavy equipment. Never get behind a machine that is backing up. Stay out of the swing radius of heavy equipment. Always check hand and power tools for damage and wear eye protection while using them. Be sure to wear head protection around any type of overhead work. Unless you are directly involved in building concrete or masonry walls, stay away from them until the work is finished. Stack building materials securely and out of the way of traffic so they won't get knocked over and become falling object hazards. Now that you know how to recognize struck-by hazards and what to do to avoid them, you have the skills you need to make sure that you and your coworkers leave your job site injury-free every day.
Do it. Open. There we go. So, as you can see, and as you guys probably already know, there's a whole heck of a lot out there that can hit you and hurt you, or hit you and kill you. You know what you guys do on a daily basis? You're basically dealing with this stuff every day. You know, whether it be particles flying from whenever you're using a cut saw, cutting concrete, cutting steel for any reason. Anytime you're around the bucket of an excavator, anytime you're around any moving equipment, you know, those are all struck-by hazards. So, I mean, it's really up to you guys to keep your heads on a swivel and always think about where you are, what you're doing, and who else is around you. And I say that all the time. Like my old man says, you know, used to say back in the day, it's all about top-of-mind awareness. What's going on? What's around you? Who else is around you? What are you doing? So there's a lot of things to think about. So check your tools. Make sure your hammers are in good condition, your shovels are in good condition. If anything's wrapped with duct tape, you know, if anything needs to be repaired or replaced, replace it, you know, turn it in, get something new. Because like if I were a compliance officer and say, for example, there was a reason for me to come onto your site and I'm walking over to the ditch and I happen to pass, oh, there's duct tape wrapped around this hammer, there's duct tape wrapped around this shovel, there's duct tape around this. I would assume, now I know that also too, you guys use duct tape, you know, as like grips so that, you know, the wood isn't too abrasive on your hands, but it could also be, you could also assume that, all right, well, that's covering up damage. And that may be something that a compliance officer will potentially try and get you for. Also too, if you're working next to roadways, make sure you're wearing high vis and make sure your high vis is actually highly visible. You know, if you've got an old, you know, what used to be a high vis green shirt and it's been through the wash so many times, you've been in the dirt so many times, it's no longer as brilliant as it used to be, get a new shirt or use a vest. You know, because that's something that, like they said in the video, and that's something I've told you guys too. Caught between is one of the Focus 4 hazards, and it's one of their national emphasis programs, and it's something they take very seriously. So if they see you working next to a roadway, they'll stop and they'll get you for it. Also too, with your ditches, with your excavations, with your trenches, make sure that your spoil pile is at least 2 feet back from the edge. And also, any tools or materials are also 2 feet back from the edge. You know, whether it may be a generator or a pump, it's gotta be at least 2 feet back from the edge of an excavation. All right? And anytime you're using a saw, if you're cutting concrete, if you're cutting steel for whatever reason, you gotta use a face shield with safety glasses. I think I've told you guys a story probably about 1,000 times about the company that got busted because the guy was using a cut saw and he was wearing safety glasses, but he wasn't wearing a face shield. And they ended up fighting it. They fought OSHA, and over the course of, I don't know how long it was, but initially the fine was like $2,000, and eventually they won, but they ended up paying $65,000 to win. Just kind of, which is a,
Should just pay the $2,000.
you should have just paid the $2,000. That's a huge pirate victory. You know, it wasn't worth it. You know, I mean, all this stuff, it can be prevented. You know, you just have to think about it. You have to take the time to think about it, and you actually have to apply it. You can't just say, oh, you know what, it'd be better if we did this, if we scooted, you know, if we increased the slope ever so slightly. It would be better if we did that. It would probably only take 2 minutes, but you know what? I'm too involved with production right now, so I'm just gonna forego that and get the job done. Well, okay, you could do that, but then again, at the same time, if you don't do it right, you do have a compliance officer, come on, so he does fine you $22,000. How much money did you make off that job just for that one little job next to a road? I don't know. But not as much as you would have had you done it right. So, anyways, I'm done for right now. Any questions?
I will say PPE is still, can see some improvement around here. I still see people that don't want to wear a hard hat or don't want to put the goggles on and stuff like that. I hear people telling me they don't want to do it, that their guys are trying to fight and doing it. It's a hard hat every day. I don't care what you're doing. These jobs all require a hard hat. When you're cutting, you start using a face shield. I personally think that the guy that got hurt in the neck with a saw, face shield may help protect him. I don't know if you heard about that. But,
Yeah, I heard about that. I was actually gonna bring that up.
so I mean, just there's no reason. I mean, we don't do this just to spend money for them. This, you should be listening to this. Y'all should be doing it for your own protection.
Was that in Delray where the guy got cut?
No, it's here.
It was here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Flew in.
Well, similar incident happened over in Delray with another one of our clients where they're using a cut saw on it, cut him in the neck, but luckily it, didn't hit one of his arteries, didn't end up bleeding out or anything, but, he wasn't wearing a face shield, just like this situation. Who knows? I mean, maybe the
Yeah,
face
it's
shield
just,
could
the
help.
saw pops back on you. I mean, it just happens. Sometimes it lines up and it'll pop back at you. You gotta be alert. It's top of mind.
Never think that it can't, and even though it's got that guard on there, that doesn't mean it can't come back and get you. So I mean, on this personal protective equipment, it's all for your own personal use anyways. I know that it stinks to look through a dirty, scratched up face shield or dirty, scratched up safety glasses. Nobody wants to
Then ask
do that.
Jackie for a new one. We supply them
There
all.
you go. Just get in your pair.
Only thing we don't supply here is your footwear, but everything else you can get here.
But you know what? It's also up to you guys to maintain the stuff and take care of it. You don't want to just, when you're done, throw it in the back of the truck and throw it in the back of the box and let it get beat to hell. Because then when you want to use it next time, or if somebody else wants to use it next time, oh, guess what? It's scratched up. Nobody wants to look through that, so they just forego and say, I'm only going to do this a second. And then somebody gets cut in the neck. Or something flies in their face, or something flies into their eyes, pokes them in the eye. So all it takes is a second, less than a second.
Yeah, but they don't care. They know everything. They think they know everything.
Well, they don't, and neither do I. Neither does anyone in this room. We can all learn something.
Yeah, people refuse to do it. You need some, for all the forms out there, that's what you do.
So,
Yeah.
I don't like to take work away from anybody, but you know what? If you're not gonna comply, after you've been told and told and told, after I've been telling you, you have really nobody but yourselves to blame.
It's good work.